Today's lesson is going to be on graphing quadratic equations. This is a slightly difficult concept at first that requires some practice, but once you get settled into it, it's not too bad. You're definitely going to want to use the calculator to help you with some calculations. When fractions are involved, that's definitely something you're going to want to make sure to have going with you. So let's go ahead and slide over to our notes. I would definitely make sure you have printed your notes before we do this. So if you need to pause this video now and go find and print your notes on graphing quadratic equations, you're going to want to do so because we're going to work out an example from start to finish as part of those. So let's turn on our background here and shrink me into the corner. And let's slide over here to our document camera. So the notes that you have for graphing quadratic equations. The graph for a quadratic function is called a parabola. This is a U-shaped graph. Now the U shape is because of the power of 2. The exponent of 2 is going to have our graph go up at a faster rate as the numbers become larger. And we'll take a look at what that looks like shortly. The standard form for a quadratic function is key. And we forgot the letter n there in function, so let's add the letter n in our notes. The standard form for the quadratic function is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c are numbers. These are numbers that are in front of the variables. And the most basic one, you're going to have a 1 in front of the x squared. Okay. So we'll take a look at some examples of what that could be in a moment. The first thing, and this is important so you know what your graph is going to do. If a being the number in front of x squared, if a is positive, your U shape, your parabola will open up. If a is negative, it's going to open down. So we're going to have a parabola that will open up. Or if a is negative, then the parabola will open down. Now this is important because you want to know ahead of time what your parabola should do. So if my a, if the number in front of x squared is positive, the U shape opens up. But if that number in front of the x squared is negative, then it's going to open down. The first point that we need to find is the vertex. The vertex is going to be an ordered pair, x comma y, and it's either going to be the lowest point or the highest point of the graph. Now if the parabola opens up, the vertex is going to be the lowest point. If the parabola opens down, then the vertex is going to be the highest point. So it all depends on what the parabola is going to do. Now this part is key. In order to find the x value of a vertex, we're going to take the opposite of b over 2 times a. Well, where do these values come from? They're coming from the standard form. So we are going to be using the opposite of b over 2a. Well, let's say, for example, that b is, and let's go ahead and make an example here. So let's take this equation here. B is 4. Well, that means the opposite of B would be negative 4. So if I'm finding the vertex, I am going to say, okay, the x value is going to be the opposite of B, so negative 4 over 2 times A, which is 2. Well, that's going to become negative 4 over 4. And negative 4 over 4 means the x value is negative 1. So for my vertex, the x value is negative 1. Right. And we're going to do an example from start to finish. This is just so we can see what's happening in our notes. To find the y value, you're going to take this value of x that you just got right here, and you're going to plug it back into the original equation to find y. So you're going to plug it back into whatever you've got. So for the example we did here, this is that original equation that we're going to plug into. So x is going to get replaced in both of those cases. The vertex is important because that's the starting point for this particular graph. Okay. Now let's step up to that next level. The axis of symmetry is an imaginary vertical line that splits the U-shape. All parabolas are symmetrical. So if I draw this parabola here, I know that the vertex is right there. That's the lowest point. And there is an imaginary vertical line that passes through this parabola. A parabola can basically be folded right on top of itself. Because of the way a quadratic function works, there's symmetry on both sides of that vertex. Now, to find the axis of symmetry, that equation simply is the x value of the vertex. Because remember, what is the equation for a vertical line? Well, we memorize this. The equation for all vertical lines is x equals. Well, I'm going to take the x value of my vertex to get that. Once I have my vertex, I'm going to make a table of values, and I'm going to put the vertex in the middle. And I'm going to pick points to the left and to the right. And I'm going to plug those points into my original quadratic function, and then I'm going to plot points and connect them to make my parabola. Okay. So let's go through an example to see how this plays out. So in your notes, you have this example right here, and you're going to see I've already prepared the table and the graph. Well, the first question you should ask yourself for this particular equation is what is A, what is B, and what is C? Because we need those values. Well, the number in front of x squared is 1, so A equals 1. The number in front of x is my b, so b is -2. And the number at the end is c, so c is -3. So that's the first step. Now, the second step, will my parabola open up or will it open down? Well, to figure that out, I need to look right here at the number in front of x squared. The number in front of x squared is 1, and it's positive. Therefore, I know that this parabola is going to open up. So when I graph over here, I better have a parabola that opens up. Well, let's find the most important point for my parabola, and that's going to be my vertex. So my vertex. Now remember, the x value of my vertex is the opposite of b over 2a. Well, if I come up here, b is -2. So when I plug that in, I'm going to have a negative sign, and then I'm going to put -2 in for b. Well, what do you notice? What happens? It becomes positive, which is the opposite of the -2 here. So the top of my fraction, I know, will become +2. The bottom of my fraction is 2 times a. So 2 times a. Well, a is 1. So that's 2 times 1. Well, I have 2 over 2. So the x value is 1. So I'm going to put a 1 right here. How do we find the y value? Well, remember, to find the y value, I am going to take this value right here that I got for x, and I'm going to plug into the original equation for where I see the letter x. So the y value, y equals x squared. Well, what's plugging in for x is 1. So this becomes 1 squared minus 2, so -2 times x, which is 1, and then -3. 1 squared is 1. -2 times 1 is -2, and -3. So if I put those together, y equals -4. So my vertex is at 1, -4. In my table, I am now going to put the vertex in the middle of my table. So right here, the x value was 1, and the y value was -4. I now need to pick x values to the right and x values to the left. Well, if I go to the right of 1, I get 2, and 3, and 4. And if I go to the left, I get 0, -1, -2. And I'm going to go ahead and take this point right now, my vertex, and I'm going to graph it now. So at 1, -4, I have my vertex. And I know that from here, whatever I get, my parabola is going to have to open up. It's going to be a U shape that opens up. Now this is the part where we have to really be careful, and this is where the calculator is going to help you out quite a bit. Because I'm going to have to now take each of these values from the table, and I'm going to have to plug all of these x values into this original equation to get my input-output. So for the first one, I'm just going to plug in 0, because 0 is the easiest. So this becomes y equals x squared becomes 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 3. Well, if I do all of that, 0 squared is 0. -2 times 0 is 0. So y equals -3. So up here in the table, when x was 0, y is -3. Now I want you to notice what's going to happen. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to plug in 2. Y equals 2 squared minus 2 times 2 minus 3. So if I go back to the original equation, my x squared and my x both got replaced with 2. Well, 2 squared is 4, minus 2 times 2 is -4 minus 3, so y equals -3. I want you to remember what we talked about in step number 3. There is an axis of symmetry that goes right through the vertex. So remember, I drew my vertex right here. There is a vertical line, an imaginary vertical line, that passes right through the vertex. What that means is every time I find a point that's on the right side of the vertex, there should be a point symmetrical on the other side. Well, let's look at what we get when I plot these points. 0, -3 goes right here, and 2, -3 goes right here. You can see the symmetry is starting to build. Well, let's plug in my 3. So I'm going to go y equals 3 squared minus 2 times 3 minus 3. So I'm plugging in again. This is going to be 9 minus 6 minus 3, which equals 0. So now I'm at 3, 0. And let's plug in my 4. Y equals 4 squared minus 2 times 4 minus 3. This equals 16 minus 8 minus 3, which equals 5. Now, if I'm using symmetry, and I know that this is symmetrical, I should get 0 right here, and I should get 5 right here. So let's go ahead and test those last 2 points and plug them in. Y equals, remember, when you plug in a negative number, be sure to use parentheses. So -1 squared minus 2 times -1 minus 3. If I scoot up there, this is going to be a +1 plus 2 minus 3, which sure enough equals 0. So here's my 0. And I'll plug in the last one, -2 in parentheses. minus 2 times negative 2 minus 3. So this one here, negative 2 squared is 4, plus 4 minus 3 equals 5. And sure enough, my table gave me the rest of my symmetry. So we're going to go at 4 comma 5, and then it's negative 1 comma 0, and negative 2 comma 5. And you'll see the symmetry. Now, when I draw this parabola, the U shape, I'm going to do the best I can to get through the points. And I'm going to put an arrow at the end because that parabola keeps going, and then I'm going to curve it at the bottom, and then we're going to go up here to show that it continues. So, to recap, to graph a parabola, the first thing we should do is decide what A, B, and C are. I'm then going to decide if it opens up or down. And this one I decided it was up, and sure enough, my parabola opened up. I'm going to find the vertex, because the vertex is where I'm going to start my table. I'm going to put the vertex in the middle, because I have symmetry growing out from both sides of the vertex. And then I'm going to pick points to the left and to the right of that vertex, and I'm going to plug them into the equation, and I'm going to solve. Now, I did this without a calculator, but as long as you're careful, the calculator can help you with these calculations, so you can then fill in the rest of the table to plot points and graph your parabola. I hope that this helped. Remember, we will be taking questions in a Zoom session, so when you do have questions about graphing, please be sure to bring those to me and we will address those. Have a wonderful day and take care.